Well, I think people would like to say that it would make a difference on trade policy, but actually in the trade world, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of difference. And the reason for that is that a couple of things. So one is that we have both parties are united, I think, around China, which is to say that the United States at the moment seems to believe, both parties and the business community in Washington, that the United States has been at the very minimum, has not been treated fairly or has been lied to or has had promises not kept by the Chinese side, and that therefore the U.S. has to do something different. Trump is doing something different. Those kinds of policies deserve support from both parties. So I don't think you're going to see a whole lot different vis-a-vis China. You're not going to see a whole lot different on tariffs either, I don't think. The only area where you might see some difference, and even this is a bit difficult, is on the ratification of the new NAFTA, which was always going to be difficult, but is going to be maybe harder to do with a democratically controlled House, because you have to get a majority in both places, and that's going to be tough.
Interesting. That's one big thing to keep in mind, too. And I do wonder, we're talking a lot about the issues on the table today, legislation that Capitol Hill would want to get moved through. But I wonder, looking ahead to 2020, people will also be looking at these races, not just the House and Senate, but the governorships race, too, which has been quite close in several states, for any indications of 2020. Do you think China is looking out for that, too, and wondering, hey, any trade deals we agreed to today may be different if, in fact, there is a White House turnover?
I think that certainly in China, they're watching these elections closely. I think all of the world is watching these elections closely, and Asia as a whole watching closely for any indication of daylight between Trump and anyone else in the Republican side, and any daylight between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party on trade. They're trying to figure out how unified is this position on tariffs, on 301 issues, on getting tough on China. Is this just a Trumpian phenomenon? Is this bigger than just him? Has the Republican Party as a whole coalesced behind him? This is a great moment to judge whether or not this is about Trump as Trump, or is this a broader phenomenon? And I think the Chinese will be disappointed to discover that this is bigger than just Trump. But how much bigger, we need to wait and see a little bit longer.
Hadley?
And Deborah, when we talk about this being bigger than just Trump, I think it's going to be really interesting, isn't it, to watch whether or not we see the Democrats take the House there, because the follow-on would naturally be, or at least the conventional wisdom is, that we're going to be bogged down in the next 2 years with investigation after investigation. I can already see in the crystal ball hearing after hearing after hearing. Now, what do most presidents or leaders do when they want to deflect attention? They either start a war or they continue with a trade war. What's your take?
Well, I think usually when you have a president who is facing challenges at home, they go for foreign policy. That's a typical response of presidents. This president is not that keen on foreign policy as a whole, but he is deeply invested in trade and trade policy, and he's seen on the campaign trail that that resonates with his base. So I would expect him, as he comes under increasing difficulties at home under a democratically controlled House, to respond by ratcheting up trade tensions and by ratcheting up his own involvement in trade issues, because he has lots of power, lots of flexibility, and the ability to do what he thinks is distracting attention from domestic politics by using foreign policy, but specifically trade policy abroad. So I think you're going to see more trade actions in the next 2 years than you saw in his previous 2 years. So I think trade remains very contested. And if you saw him moving into the final stretch in these midterms, he returned to 2 arguments over and over again: immigration, which is very hard to get anything done on, and trade, where he has a lot of room to maneuver. Since immigration is so hard, he will come back to trade again and again and again whenever he thinks that he needs to show results, because there's a lot of ability by the President of the United States to do what he wants on trade. That's where he's going to keep coming back.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now, to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.